Hello ladies and gentlemen, Ramin Fergani here with your poetry explication project. Today we'll be discussing two great poems. First is Fairylands 1 and 2, written by William Shakespeare. This was extrapolated from William Shakespeare's Midsummer's Night Dream, a very nice play of his. And the second one that we'll be doing is A Science So the Savants Say, written by Emily Dickinson. Of course, this is just the common title because Emily Dickinson does not name her titles, or I'm sorry, does not name her poems, but common literary experts just use the first line of her poems for easy reference and to be able to archive them. So I'll start by reading both poems to you. Fairyland 1. Over hill, over dale, thorough bush, thorough briar, over park, over pale, thorough flood, thorough fire. I do wander everywhere, swifter than the moon's sphere, and I serve the fairy queen, to do her orbs upon the green. The cowslip's tail her pensioners be, in their gold coats spots you see. Those be rubies' fairy favors, in those freckles live their savors. I must go seek some dewdrops here, and hang a pearl in every cowslip's ear. Fairyland 2 is you spotted snakes with double tongue, thorny hedgehogs be not seen. Newts and blind worms do no wrong, come not near our fairy queen. Philomel with melody, singing our sweet lullaby. Lulla, lulla, lullaby. Lulla, lulla, lullaby. Never harm, nor spell, nor charm, come our lovely lady nigh, so good night with lullaby. Weaving spiders come not here, hence you long-legged spiders hence. Beetles black approach not near, worm nor snail do no offense. Philomel with melody, singing our sweet lullaby, lulla, lulla, lullaby. Lulla, lulla, lullaby. Never harm, nor spell, nor charm, come our lovely lady nigh, so good night with lullaby. And the second poem by Emily Dickinson, A Science So the Savants Say. A science, so the savants say, comparative anatomy, by which a single bone is made a secret to unfold, of some rare tenet of the mold, else perished in the stone. So to the eye perspective led, this meekest flower of the med, upon a winter's day, stands representative in gold, of rose and lily manifold, and countless butterfly. These are your two poems, and right now what I'd like to do is I'd like to lead you in a line by line of Fairyland 1. What we'll do Fairyland 1, and then we'll do, Fairylands 1 and 2. We'll be counting those as one collective group, and then we'll move on to do A Science to the Savants Say individually, and then we'll combine those two, and we'll begin our synthesis. For the line by line of Fairyland 1. Over hill, over dale, thorough bush, thorough briar, over park, over pale, thorough flood, thorough fire. I go over hills and valleys, through bushes and thorns, over parks and fenced-in spaces, through water and fire. I do wander everywhere, swifter than the moon's sphere, and I serve the fairy queen to do her orbs upon the green. I wander everywhere faster than the moon revolves around the earth. I work for Titania, the fairy queen, and organize fairy dances for her in the grass. The cowslips tall her pensioners be, in their gold coat spots you see. Those be rubies' fairy favors, in those freckles live their savors. I must go seek some dewdrops here, and hang a pearl in every cowslip's ear. The cowslip flowers are her bodyguards. You'll see that their petals have spots on them. Those are rubies, fairy gifts. Their sweet smells come from those little freckles. Now I have to go find some dewdrops and hang a pearl earring on every cowslip flower. That was Fairyland 1, now Fairyland 2. Starts with, you spotted snakes with double tongue, thorny hedgehogs be not seen, newts and blind worms do no wrong, come not near our fairy queen. Snakes with forked tongues and porcupines don't be seen, deadly lizards don't be mean, don't come near our fairy queen. Philomel with melody, sing in our sweet lullaby, lulla, lulla, lullaby, lulla, lulla, lullaby. Never harm, nor spell, nor charm, come our lovely lady nigh, so good night with lullaby. Nightingale melodiously, sing our sweet lullaby, lulla, lulla, lullaby, lulla, lulla, lullaby. Let no harm, or spell, or charm, come near our lovely lady, say good night with lullaby. Weaving spiders come not here, hence you long-legged spiders hence. Beetles black approach not near, worm nor snail do no offense. The translation to that will be, spiders with your web stay away, you long-legged things be gone. Black beetles don't come near, worms and snails don't be bad. And finally, Philomel with melody, singing our sweet lullaby, lulla, lulla, lullaby, lulla, lulla, lullaby. Never harm, nor spell, nor charm, come our lovely lady nigh, so good night with lullaby. Translation will be, Nightingale melodiously sing a sweet lullaby. Lulla, lulla, lullaby. Lulla, lulla, lullaby. Let no harm or spell or charm come near our lovely lady. Say good night with a lullaby. And so if you'll notice in the second one, the second and fourth stanzas are identical, and those are what we would go ahead and call refrains. As we move on, I'd like to now go ahead and discuss a little bit of the structure. And so Fairyland 1, the first poem that I read you, consisted of 14 lines as in a traditional Shakespearean sonnet. However, the rhyme scheme of it was different than a Shakespearean sonnet, as the rhyme scheme was A, B, A, B, A, C, D, D, E, E, I'm sorry, A, B, A, B, A, C, D, D, E, E, F, F, G, G. Now, traditional Shakespearean sonnets rhyme scheme will be A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, E, G, G. Of course, the same 14 lines, however, the rhyme scheme is different. Now, this sonnet has a very similar rhyme scheme, however, it's not quite there yet. It's very similar, but it's not there. Again, 14 line rhyme scheme, not quite there. The meter will be counted as a measure of syllables per line, and that is 6, 6, 6, 7, 7, 6, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 8, 8, 10. Obviously, this meter is very similar. We don't have any outlandish outliers, nothing like that. They're very similar. The poem does flow. However, it is not all similar. When Shakespeare is writing, especially in a sonnet, we will expect him to be writing an iambic pentameter. Iambic pentameter is a type of writing in which there are 5 feet, each consisting of an iamb. An iamb has 2 syllables of 1 unstressed syllable followed by 1 stressed syllable for a total of 10 syllables per line, 5 stressed, 5 unstressed, alternating in a one-on, one-off pattern. But this iambic pentameter does not appear, not only on the unstressed and stressed pattern, but also with the number of syllables per line, as the meter shows. This is a bit irregular for Shakespeare, as we would expect him to be writing an iambic pentameter here. Of course, keep in mind that this play was adapted from Midsummer's Night's Dream and is not just a regular sonnet or an independent piece of work. It was taken from A Midsummer's Night's Dream, so it's a piece within a piece. Fairy Tale 2 has 4 stanzas, the first of which has 4 lines, the second of which has 7, the third of which has 4, and the fourth and final stanza has 7 lines. The second and the fourth stanzas are identical in everything, because they have the same words, so obviously it would be identical in meter as well as rhyme scheme, and they are called refrains because of that reason of them being identical. The rhyme scheme is not readily apparent. It appears as though stanzas 1 and 3, the 2 differentiated ones, have an AB pattern to them, with stanza 1 being a little stretch, a tongue and wrong, not really a rhyme. We can call it a slant rhyme for our purposes, but that would be kind of pushing it. But the others do rhyme: tongue, wrong, scene, queen, and then here, near, hence, offense. So they do rhyme. We'll give Shakespeare credit for that one. There is no rhyme scheme in the stanzas 2 and 4, the refrains. There is a rhyme in lines 4 and 5, harm, charm, but other than that, there is no line. Melody, lullaby, lullaby, harm, charm, nigh, lullaby. You can't rhyme lullaby. It's the ending of 3 of the remaining 5 lines, so therefore not much room for rhyming, but there you go. The meter for this is stanza 1, 8, 7, 7, 7. 2, 7, 14, 3, 4, 7, 7. Again, this is syllables per line. The third stanza has 7, 7, 7, 7, and the fourth stanza has 7, 14, 3, 4, 7, 7. You'll notice again that the meter of the second and fourth stanzas are identical. One thing I would like to take note of is that it is by no coincidence that the first and third stanzas have very similar meters. Again, that is 8, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. 7 of the 8 lines has 7 syllables. Only the first line has 8. And now, you might say this is an oversight, it's not significant, but I'd beg to differ, because Shakespeare is very meticulous, especially to be writing an iambic pentameter. It's all about stressed and unstressed syllables, and in the third stanza, in the second line of the third stanza, we see that he has shortened the word leg. Leg would conventionally be spelled L-E-G-G-E-D. Because of the E-D there, that would become a 2-syllable word, which would make that line 8 syllables in length. However, he has purposefully shortened that word by removing the E and adding an apostrophe, making it kind of slang word, as Shakespeare was the king of slang. Now the new word become legged. not too much of a difference. However, by taking out the vowel, you do shorten the word, and it is only a one-syllable word, therefore keeping in line with the 7-7 rule. However, the first line of the poem still has 8 syllables, which tells me that it is significant to the meaning. There's something significant. As we'll know, Shakespeare writes in blank verse. However, when he starts writing in poetic verse, especially in his sonnets or in his iambic pentameters, then you start to know something significant. That's his way of using linguistics, diction, and syntax to key the reader into something that he's trying to point out to the reader without blatantly coming out and saying it. Furthermore, what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at the themes of the fairyland. So in the first one, we have, in the first few lines, we have alliteration forming: over, through, bush, briar, over, park, pale, through, flood, fire. And these are in the same lines. And then in the lines immediately following that, a good little introduction, get the rhythm going, get the flow going. He states, I do wander everywhere, swifter than the moon's sphere. In our line by line, we do understand that the fairy is speaking, and the fairy says, I walk faster than the moon spins around the earth. Now, why is this significant? Well, right now, most people's understanding of science states that yes, the moon does spin around the earth. However, back in Shakespeare's time, there was a large controversy about what our solar system consisted of. Was the Earth the center? Was the Sun the center? Who spun around what? Did the Earth, did all of the other planets spin around Earth? You know, what was going on? And it could be Shakespeare's way of not only expressing his opinion, as writers, they like to, through their characters, and they can express their attitude and their thoughts on a specific topic. That'll come through their tone. And so in this specific poem, Swiftfoot, he could be expressing his views as though the Earth is not the center of the universe just because the moon spins around the Earth. The Earth is not centered, and he could be talking about society in a whole, how society is self-centered and thinks only about itself as a collective whole. Now, also, what I want to mention is the fact that immediately following that, he says, and I serve the fairy queen to do her orbs upon the green. Now, it's talking about the fairy. However, we've already established that Shakespeare could be referring to I as himself, as an extension through the character. And the fairy queen, it could be talking about, or could be referring, I should say, to a higher order. In this case, I do believe it would be, for example, Mother Nature. The fairy queen, fairies, their nature, they go out, they plant flowers, similar to nymphs in mythology. And so, to do her orbs upon the green, dew forms at night after night comes, changing between the moon and the sun. It's kind of Mother Nature, and the green could be referring to grass, trees. Green, you think of Mother Nature, Mother Earth. And so she creates dew, and I serve the fairy queen, thinking about Shakespeare. He, as an individual, can be serving Mother Nature, but he's talking about, as we go back through the society, and talking about rubies and freckles, and seeking some dewdrops here, he may be seeing that even though he as an individual respects respects Mother Nature, society as a whole does not. And it can be seen in the 13th line, I must go seek some dewdrops. Even though he can respect, he still has trouble finding the dewdrops because society is taking advantage of society and is taking all of its resources without replenishing it and respecting it in the proper fashion. Also, I'd like to point out that when we're speaking about rubies and fairy favors, freckles, it's referring to the sweetening of the rubies, and this is synecdoche because freckles, it is being used to collectively refer to rubies as a sweet. All the characteristics of rubies are being applied to freckles in that sentence, therefore it is acting as a part of the whole, the definition of synecdoche. As we move down further into Fairyland 2, we see that there are refrains. The refrains we've already gone over. The meter, and as you can see, the meter is very segmented. It's very, if we want to go over that again, the meter here will be 7, 14, 3, 4, 7, 7, as opposed to straight sevens in stanzas 1 and 3, which shows us that it's very segmented. And again, through the diction and syntax of Shakespeare, he's trying to point to us. He's kind of holding up a sign to stanzas 2 and 4. Not only did he refrain it, usually when someone repeats something, they're emphasizing it, it's important, but he also made sure to switch up, make it choppy, segmented, differentiate it as much as he could from the surrounding text to tell the reader that it's important. So as we analyze it, we'll see especially as we get into the last line. So good night with lullaby. A lullaby sung to a baby is sung to a baby to put the baby to sleep. It's usually a very peaceful thought of being peaceful. Good night could be going to sleep. However, you could go to sleep and not wake up. Speaking of Shakespeare, it's not completely inappropriate to think that, as in Shakespeare, he has had 11 characters commit suicide, 7 of which stabbed themselves, 4 of which poisoned themselves. So thinking about death in Shakespeare, it's not inappropriate. Actually, looking at his track record, you might even say it's warranted. Of course, the characters that he kills off are helpless and beyond the point of help in his ideology. Instead of helping them, he just kills them off. Now, without getting too much into the politics of Midsummer's Night's Dream, we're just going to assume that death and suicide is applicable in this scenario. So good night could be referring to a final sleep, a final resting place, death. Lullaby would mean going out in peace, going out the way you'd want to go out in a peaceful fashion, R.I.P. rest in peace. What is significant about this, and what even warrants this idea more of death as opposed to sleeping, is in the previous lines. They say, never harm, nor spell, nor charm. Harm, spell, or charm, you know, usually who would you go to get your potions make? He'd have 4 of his characters commit suicide by poison. That would be a spell or a charm. He'd go to an apothecary to mix it up. That would be a charm. And harming themselves, saying never harm, but then again, you're harming yourself. Interesting. I think that further warrants it. And even more, if we look at the diction and syntax, the linguistics of Shakespeare, he usually writes in blank verse. However, when he switches up to a poetic verse, which he has done in the 2 selected texts in a close succession in A Midsummer's Night's Dream, and that would be in Act 2, Scenes 1 and 2 respectively, referring to Fairyland 1 and 2 in the order in which you'd expect, you'd find that indeed, Fairylands 1 and 2 are differentiated from the usual blank verse. Blank verse is how the characters would talk. Most of the text is directed to groundlings, throw in slapstick humor, cheap humor, sex jokes, whatnot to get the groundlings into it. That would be your blank verse. But then when you start getting to poetic verse, that would be when he's trying to differentiate, he's trying to prove his points, point it out, as we said, trying to hold up that sign to the reader, and that reader will be the more educated. The government officials, the queens, the wealthy people, noblemen, people would be sitting in the 2nd and 3rd decks off of the ground, and those who the higher education, the more sophisticated jokes, which is why he'd use verse to signal to those people, hey, I have a sophisticated joke coming, pay attention. And Fairyland 2, these are both verse, as we've shown. So that's why it keys us in that we are not over-analyzing and that we may be onto something, analyzing Fairylands 1 and 2. As we continue to look, we further see the idea of alliteration, lullaby, lullaby. One could say that it's almost onomatopoeia as lullaby. It's kind of lull to sleep. It's a very peaceful sound, how a lullaby would sound, that very melodic tune, and lulla, there's the sound that you hear to it. And so it's a little bit of onomatopoeia here. The short choppiness again keys us into it. The 3rd stanza, weaving spiders come not here, hence you long-legged spinners, hence. Beetles black approach not near, worm nor snail do no offense. It's almost saying, hey, saying the fairies are saying to all these other organisms, get off my turf, don't come here, it's a warning. But then in the refrain, which we're supposed to pay emphasis to, it's saying we'll die in peace, we're not going to fight, if you want to look at it another way. So Shakespeare's almost juxtaposing himself. He's almost kind of deliberately confusing, for lack of a better word, he's confusing the audience member by saying in one a warning, but then if you do choose not to heed to a warning and come on the turf, we'll go down without a fight. We'll go good night with lullaby. Peacefully, we'll go to sleep. We'll surrender. And it's almost a juxtaposition. It could be in reference to historical events. You know, Shakespeare did write historical plays at that time. A Midsummer's Night's Dream is not thought to be one of them, but Shakespeare did write historical plays, and some of his more sophisticated comedy could be directed at a historical event going on at the time, which, without going into intrinsic history and knowledge of Britain at that, or England at that time, we would not know. It's just another thing to think about, some food for thought. As we continue, I'd like to now move on to Emily Dickinson's poem, A Science for the Seventh Say, and I'll move on to do a line-by-line for that. The original text reads as follows. The original text reads as a science, so the savants say, comparative anatomy, by which a single bone is made a secret to unfold, of some rare tenant of the mold, else perished in the stone. So to the eye prospective led, this meekest flower of the mead, upon a winter's day stands representative in gold, of rose and lily manifold, and countless butterfly. So if we want to take this line by line, a science, so the savants say, Emily is saying other people around her call this a science, but the savants, it's the use of a particular group of people. It's almost making sure to say she doesn't necessarily believe in this, and it's just one thought, a science. It's one perception of this reality. It's one perception of the facts. Of course, if you don't believe in reality, if you don't believe in facts, then of course the facts will not be facts to you. What is the definition of facts? Well, that's a question for another day. Comparative anatomy. It's capitalized, put in quotes, almost to put emphasis to a comparative anatomy. Almost looks like the course of the course title of a college class, comparative anatomy. It's almost the title of the rest of the poem. It's leading you to say that it's going to be comparing two things, by which a single bone, there's the first thing. If you want to look at it, it's going to be an extended metaphor. There's the key into the extended metaphor, comparative anatomy, by which a single bone, there's the first part of the metaphor, a bone, and then is made a secret to unfold of some rare tenant key. It's almost talking as if the bone is a key to unlock the mold. As you know, molds left by the fossils, archaeologists now uncover. They have uncovered tens of thousands of different species of animals that we didn't know exist, extinct before our time. They can put together a fossil record, evolutionary history with new DNA they can put together. But in Emily Dickinson's time, of course, they did not have this technology. So all she has to say is that a bone, all they have is this physical fossil they have to look at, can be the key to unlock a rare tenant, can be a key to unlock the mold to the people before her, to the past. Or else, it's perished in the stone. The bone, either it's used to look at prior, or it just withers away in the stone, useless. And that's the first thing that kind of sets the tone. And then the second stanza, we have, so to the eye prospective led, this meekest flower of the mead. It's almost saying, the bone, it leads any person on the straight and narrow path. It's almost like a clue, a flag. But the meekest flower of the mead, it's saying the one key that you would never think of, the zebra, as we like to call it in the medical field, or the one diagnosis that you wouldn't ever think, the rare 1 in 1 million chance. That one key, which is referring to a flower in this instance, the one flower that you choose to overlook, can be the key to solving the whole puzzle. Not the bone, not what you think is a smoking gun, but the meekest flower, the little one hidden in the corner somewhere, could be the key. Upon a winter's day stands representative in gold. Gold is again referring to the flower, a dandelion standing withering away in the wind. Winter's day referring to cold, harsh conditions, but the one dandelion is still standing representative. Gold talking about the petals of the flower, of course, representative. Of rose and lily manifold, talking about all these other more beautiful flowers, bigger. Everyone focused on the roses and the lilies, the manifold. Can be talked, the manifold can be like a control panel in front of you. The connotation of it, the denotation, doesn't really have manifold. Could be talked about as a control, how to control something. Therefore, of rose and lily, if you just see a field, if you think of the connotation of manifold as a field, roses and lilies, those are the prominent ones. But then the one little dandelion in the back of the manifold, hidden away, not seen immediately in front of you. And then that one countless butterfly comes along. If we want to go into this further, it's talking about how the one dandelion, the first stanza, if we want to sum it up, it's the scientist, the strict science, the archaeologist, using the bone, using past clues to unlock a new thing. The second one's like going into nature, just whimsically going out into the field, exploring, being inquisitive, and using this one dandelion to find the same thing that you could with a bone. However, the tones are much different. The first one is very strict, almost formatted. It's very scientific, formulaic. The second one is very whimsical. The diction lightens. The tone is, in my opinion, the tone changes slightly to show that Emily Dickinson's attitude is she much prefers the second one. The mood, for me at least, lightens as the mood is made by the diction and the syntax. And so the meekest flower of the mead upon a winter's day, it paints more of an image than the science would. Scientists don't like image, they don't look at imagination, like the facts, and that's what the fact is. The bone unlocks the key to the stone. However, in the field, there is nothing so cut and dry. You just kind of have to go and prospectively lead throughout the fields. And that's what it's saying. She's saying that an archaeologist can sit, and they can deduce an entire animal from just one bone. The one bone that they have, they can deduce. We see this in museums, which is where the signs come in, the signs of the savants say. However, this science, really, it's very formulaic. It doesn't have any passion to it. It's not an art. It's a science. However, the naturalist part, where you just go out into the field and discover that it's achieving the same end goal. It requires the same skill, but it doesn't have a pompous name. It doesn't have a title. It's not a museum. It's not a scientist. Just an inquisitive guy, Curious George going out into the field. But it achieves the same results. So she's almost saying, why do you have to have a scientist to go out and do this when you can just go and do this on your own? Knowing what Emily Dickinson likes to write about, we know that she likes to write about what she does herself. And she writes about what she knows about. She writes a lot about nature, a lot about her own situation, church, her own life. And so this one, she happened to write about nature. Again, as in with Shakespeare, Emily Dickinson, she can go through and portray an image of whatever she feels like doing through her character or not. She is less known to be portraying her thoughts through the characters. She's even quoted as saying she is not portrayed through her characters. Her characters are merely, or her voice is merely a representation of the verse's character. However, we still must take it as a grain of salt and say that this field is still very important. And so, if we think about the science, it has 12 lines, 2 stanzas of 6 lines. And 6 lines is sestet, so it has 2 sestets. The rhyme scheme for the first one is A, B, C, D, D, C, and rhyme scheme for the second one is A, A, B, C, C, D. Your meter will be 886, 886, and then 886, 886. So this is a variation. It is an iambic feat of a stressed and an unstressed syllable. It does not have 10 syllables per line, therefore not iambic pentameter, but it is an iambic foot. It is a variation of what is considered a common meter, excuse me, a common meter or a standard meter, which is 8686, 8 syllables, 6 syllables. Here it is 886. Emily Dickinson kind of putting her touch. When we talk about linguistics, this is important because she's not following that strict formulaic pattern. And when we try to link that all back together with Shakespeare, there are 2 different paths we can go on. We can go on the linguistic path, which is to say they're almost satirizing themselves. They're using verbal irony to make fun of what they do themselves. Emily Dickinson, she breaks the form of 8686, the common meter. She defies, logic, and goes out and goes 886, 886. Just adds an extra 8 syllable. Not what the common person would do. And it's almost her defiance against society. Her defiance against, if you've read any of her prior poems, she's often very defiant. This is just another way. Instead of conforming to the strict rules, she doesn't like rules. She likes to be free, and that's one way of expressing her freedom. Poetry can be a very good way to write and express your feelings, and by not having to apply yourself to a formula and just being able to write free verse. And it's not exactly free verse, but just a slight variation gives her the freedom. And it's even more free in some ways you're writing free verse. You feel more free breaking the rules than you would if you didn't have any rules to break. Once someone sets rules, you're more likely to break them. If you tell a teenager not to sneak out, what's he going to want to do? Sneak out. So it's almost more defiant, and it provides you more freedom. And if we link this back to Shakespeare, especially in Fairyland 1, is 14 lines. A traditional sonnet has 14 lines. The rhyme scheme is A, B, A, B, A, C, D, D, E, E, F, F, G, G. The rhyme scheme of a traditional Shakespearean sonnet will be A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. And as you can see, there's very slight variation. And again, Shakespeare here is trying to break out the monotony too. Shakespearean sonnets, they're supposed to be very formulaic. You're supposed to apply yourself to the formula. There's really no wiggle room. But Shakespeare, he invented it. He invented the Shakespearean sonnet as his writing developed, as he progressed, especially as he got into his more well-known plays, such as A Midsummer Night's Dream, from which A Fairyland 1 was extracted, and 2 for that matter. his writing has improved, and therefore he's able to break his confines that he's restricted himself to. He's able to expand his horizons, be more diverse, and as such, he's breaking his own sonnet rules, and he's just being defiant. He's satirizing himself. He's satirizing society around him because society has come to love Shakespeare. He's the biggest poet of his time. Therefore, they love him. And therefore, by an extension of love him, they love his work. His work is that Shakespearean sonnet, traditional fashion. By breaking out of the form of the traditional sonnet and changing up that rhyme scheme ever so slightly while keeping some elements of the sonnet, such as 14 lines in a very similar rhyme scheme. The meter is flowing as usual. Then you can only help but wonder, what is Shakespeare saying about society? Shakespeare is saying that society is too conformist and he's trying to break out. And again, we can support that through his what he's actually written, not only in his structure, but what he actually wrote in the text. The text of what he's written, again, with the moon orbiting around the sun and what orbits around the sun, Mother Nature and whatnot. That's the question that he leaves. That's the door to the question that kind of he leaves open to interpretation. He's taking some jabs at the higher level, making the sophisticated people in the upper galleries think about what he's doing. And it's just a brilliant way of doing it. Just in the same way that Shakespeare does it, Emily Dickinson does the same way. She's not following the same, she's not following the common meter of 6-8 or 8-6-8-6. She's doing 8-8-6. She's breaking out. She's being defiant. She's being free. And now, once we look at the actual language of the poem, it's almost as, because of the tone and the mood lighten when she gets the second stanza, when she's talking about nature, we can understand that if we call the first stanza science as being society, so the savants say, the savants can be referring to society as a whole. So the others say, replace the word savants with others. So the others say, then it's like others are society against me versus society, just as in Shakespeare. It's another me versus society situation. Society likes science. It's just hand in hand. It's a conformist. But that second stanza where the tone and the mood lightens, she's again breaking free, being defiant not only with her structure, but with her words, with her syntax, with the mood that she creates. And she's saying that society has become too conformist. Society is not respecting Mother Nature. And again comes a theme of Mother Nature. The common theme between both poems is that Mother Nature is not respected and that society is depleting and destroying Mother Nature without properly respecting it. Lilies, butterflies, winter's day, meekest flowers, roses. These are all standard compliments, and it's saying that science is almost destroying through a dark, gloomy mood created in the first sestet, and a lighter, airier mood created in the second sestet, and the order in which they're placed, obviously, then you can tell which way Emily Dickinson is feeling. And so, she is feeling that nature is being destroyed, it's being depleted by science. Science, when we link that back to society, society is therefore indirectly destroying nature. In Shakespeare, as we go up to the fairylands, man is not respecting. He's having to go hunt for dewdrops. All these floods and fires are happening to society. Man is going faster. They're not respecting all the natural phenomena that are out there, such as the sun and the other planets. They think the Earth is the only thing. They think it's theirs. They're taking it for granted. And that's the thought that Shakespeare and Dickinson are trying to convey in these poems. So I'd like to thank you for watching my synthesis essay.